Tonight is Tuesday, October 25th, 4 p.m. is the meeting of the Acushnet Board of Selectmen. There's a motion to call the meeting to order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, in our packet, we have meeting minutes of September 13th. Is there any issues with those, gentlemen?
Just a quick one on under the business, when we spoke with the police department on the, I guess it's B, we did move forward with hiring 3 full-time police officers, but there's no mention of it in the minutes, so I just wanted that to be corrected.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve. And second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. First item under appointments is tax classification with the Board of Assessors. We do this on an annual basis to set essentially the tax rate or the tax shift. See Mr. Brown from the Board of Assessors. Welcome, Bob. And Ms. Costa. We'll leave that discussion in your part.
Hopefully I know how to do this. I don't know if I do. Do you know where this goes? Because, well, Nick was supposed to set it up in any event. I have hard copies for everybody. I'm just gonna go along with it if it doesn't happen electronically, okay?
Thank you very much.
You have one. I gave you one, Lisa.
You got an extra one?
Yeah,
I
this is
do.
fine. If you want to pick the copies, fine.
Oh, I don't, but I can give it to you after.
Oh,
There
there you
it
go.
is.
Oh, okay, great.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to be going over some information I had given to the Board of Selectmen earlier this week. Just to do a recap, you can start with what I had handed out previously, not through the PowerPoint presentation, but it starts out with this, it might have been in your packet. It was a review of FY22, the levy. We certified a levy of $20,464,838.34, and our maximum allowable levy for fiscal '22 was $20,575,073, and we left a levy excess levy capacity of $110,000. That was just a recap I wanted to give everybody from last year. If you look at the next page, it's proposed fiscal 2023 tax levy data, and I'm going to break it down in the slideshow as well. If you look on under Roman numeral number 3, it just breaks down where we're getting the levy limit from above with a debt exclusion, and we're looking at a maximum allowable levy, and all the calculations I'll be presenting today will be based on that levy of $21,568,929. If you look at the bottom, it just basically, it's a change in the levy from fiscal 2022 to 2023 of about close to $1 million, which is the Prop 2.5 on top of fiscal 22 new growth and the debt exclusion. Again, that would be the maximum allowable levy that could be used for taxing, to get the monies from taxation. Okay, now I will go to the PowerPoint presentation. Again, I'm just going over what we went over on the levy base for the levy limit for fiscal 2023. New growth has yet not been certified at the 491,306. I am working with the Department of Revenue right now. If there is a differential, it will be minimal, probably around the $450,000 range. For budgetary purposes for FY '23, $325,000 was used, so I will meet above and beyond that request or that requirement. Then, of course, the debt exclusion and repeating that number of the maximum allowable levy of $21,568,929.
Can I ask a question before we get to
Yeah.
Yep,
On the new growth,
yep,
I think you used, the Board of Assessors used the amount of $325,000
that is
that you
correct.
committed.
Yep,
So when you use the committed amount and then you're using a 491 number there, should we be using the 325 that's committed and not the 491?
no, because that number is asked of me, Kevin, that's asked of me at the beginning of the year. Unfortunately, I do not have I tend to be very conservative when I make that projection, because if I don't meet that number, then it has to come from taxation, and that's ultimately what we don't want to happen. Fortunately, the new growth did come in. That particular rise in number, to be honest with you, is driven mostly by the personal property that we're getting from the new solar arrays that have just gone online and are taxable on Wing Lane. So that's where a lot of drive of that number is coming from.
Okay. Because that's, I was gonna ask you that question too, as far as new growth, what the biggest portion of that was, and I'm assuming that it was a good chunk was solar. So
Big chunk
because
was
of that
solar.
special legislation and we don't use it for budgetary reasons, but
It is on page 2 of the recap, it does draw in. That solar revenue
It does
number.
draw in, but that's not what we would be saying that we would be using for budgetary reasons, because we have to back out the solar number from the new growth.
Again, that number is a fluid number due to the fact that you can add any excess before the capacity is voted upon. It can go into the overlay account, and then the town, when the town goes to actually set the tax rate, dependent on what they leave behind as excess levy capacity, or what they choose to not leave behind and leave in taxation and put in overlay, would impact that bottom line number.
So that 21,568,929.
Is the maximum
that's-
allowable levy, that's the
the-
max.
Right, but that's including the 110 that you did on your calculation sheet in the earlier going of the 110 that we left on excess capacity.
That was
number-
last year, has nothing to do with this year. That was FY '22.
It's calculated off the same number though, right?
It is, it's calculated off the net levy, not the maximum levy. When you go from one year to the next, it's the actual levy that's expended, not the projection. So in FY '22, it was already, the number that, the base number was already minus the 110.
Yep, that's the 2464 number at the top of FY '22. And then it's being added back in this year to the levy, the maximum allowable levy. So what I'm asking is,
When you don't go to the max the year before, it can't get added later
Correct.
down the line.
It's
So
a-
it's not getting added again. Because you didn't use the max last year, the new max is that much less every year forward.
That is correct.
okay, but it's tabulated here because it goes off the.
It is not, what you're seeing up on the screen.
25,75,075 minus that 110 starts you at that 2464 for the max levy. So all I'm asking is that 110 still left in excess capacity, or is it being taken out of excess capacity?
Once
Because
it's
it's
in
being calculated into that number when you derive
It
tax rate.
is not derived into that number. At 110, the 110 that the selectmen chose to leave in FY '22 from the maximum allowable levy in FY '22 is a number that is exactly that, left behind, is in excess. They chose not to collect that from taxation, they chose to leave it behind and take it out of the number. So the net levy is the catapult number that is used for FY '23, not including the $110,000. The only thing that you could possibly do is, if you look at an IGR, and I can get it for you, Kevin, we had this situation because 2 years ago, we left almost $400,000 of excess levy capacity. We did not recoup that, those monies. Those monies are not recouped, if any, only a portion is, and it would be a difference of the net levies. And there's a calculation that they do provide, I could definitely provide it to you, to see how that's calculated and impacts the future years. But it is not the number that you leave as excess. That once it's left, it's exactly that, it's left. That's why it's called excess.
But if we left 391 in previous
FY
years,
'21, that was never recaptured.
where did that money go?
It's left behind, it is not recaptured.
How? There's only 110 left.
That has
Excess
nothing
capacity.
to, that has nothing to do with the future fiscal year. It's isolated to that year, and I can definitely get you the calculation of 1 year to the next. Excess levy capacity does not impact the future year. That's the whole purpose of it being voted. The selectmen choose to make a choice and decrease the levy, thus influencing and decreasing the tax rate for their residents. That's the ultimate goal. That was the ultimate goal, I believe, in FY '21 and in FY '22 as well, leaving, because historically, if you look back, maybe about 8 to 10 years ago, the excess levy capacity that was left, it was at a maximum of $10,000. We've creeped up into these six-figure numbers as, of course, the levies are getting larger and more taxation has to be collected.
We had
So
a
this is-
realistic new growth number of 734,000 in that calendar year. That's
We
why
did.
excess levy capacity was left there, because we ain't gonna see $750,000 in new growth every year.
We are not, that is correct. But let me give you the scenario now that we're on this subject and we can discuss it. If I gave a projection, or whomever the assessor is at the time, when you're going to do FY '24 budgets in February, and they're asked the assessor of that, we don't have a crystal ball to look at and say, this is what your growth is going to be. We can make a very educated guess to see what's come on the tax rolls or anything that's going to majorly impact it, but we can't say anything more than that. My educated guess and what I choose to do is I am very, very prudent when I select that number, because I feel if I overshoot that number, then the taxation has to be affected and it increases that which needs to be collected from the residents of the town. So that is my rationale when I come up with that number.
I understand that part of the equation, how the assessors look at it for abatements and things like that, and it gets kicked into.
Nothing to do with abatements. As it has to do with, we want to be prudent collectively when we give that number to ensure that the town isn't in a deficit going into the tax levy. If that number isn't there, then that number's got to be on another line, and the other line is just that, tax levy. It's based on taxation. I'd be more than glad to share that information with you so you can see the difference between 1 year to the next and what actually is recouped. It is not the net number, it is much lower than the net number. I don't know I can't tell you exactly right now. It's a calculation that involves both years and a kind of a blended formula of the two. Be more than glad to share that with you if you'd like.
I would like.
Awesome. Just come and see me. You know where to find me. Okay. Next.
All right, keep rolling.
Yep. We're looking at the classification options for FY '23 divided by class and the weight of value per class. If you look on the left, residential, of course, we're a residential town, carries about 88.4%. Open space, we have none. Commercial, 2.18. Industrial, 1.9. Personal property, 7.4. If you look back historically, residential used to carry a lot more of the burden, as we've seen growth in personal property, with the majority of the impact definitely being taxing the solar arrays at an ad valorem tax. Again, if the selectmen choose to do pilots in the future, realize that is not new growth. It is not a number that is, it's basically a fixed number that does not impact taxation. Just something to keep in mind if you choose to go that route and not do ad valorem tax for the bigger companies that are asking you to that are solar. And then again, the easiest option to explain and understand is the tax rate is set by taking a tax levy, taking the total value of the town, which is the $1.6 billion, dividing the two, and then getting a tax rate. So if we did that and we went for a single rate, using the numbers that are presented today, which would be the $21.5 million levy and the $1.6 billion value, you're looking at a tax rate of $12.75 per $1,000. What we're here to do today, and what the selectmen need to think about and vote upon in order to move forward, is the classification amendment allows towns to shift a greater share of tax burden to commercial, industrial, and personal property classes. There are limits to how great that shift can be, and in Acushnet, the Board of Selectmen is allowed to shift by no more than 150%. The impact from the shift on the various classes differs dependent on their percentage of total value. The lower the percentage of the commercial, industrial, personal property class, the greater the increase is on the tax burden assumed by the maximum shift applied. And you have a printout of all that. That basically, I had also provided that in an Excel with the actual tax values and projected taxes that would be on a single-family home and the other classes. If you look, basically, it's giving you the scenarios of a single tax rate, 10%, 15%, 20%, 25%, and 50% tax shift. Just stop me if you have any questions as I'm moving along. The next slide is FY22 versus FY23 comparison for residential. If we're looking at the 125% tax shift, the FY22 average single-family value was $344,800, so the average single-family tax bill was $45,750. If we were, I think my slides are in the wrong order, so bear with me on this. Hold on. Yes, sorry, this is the one I want to look at. So if we look at it at status quo with a 25% tax shift as in prior fiscal years, the tax rate would be $1,233 per thousand. The average single-family value has gone up to $394,000, where the residential class has seen about a 13% overall increase in value, $49,200 in value difference, and in taxes, it would be an increase of $282.52. That's if we left everything as it were from the prior fiscal year. Looking at residential now, the Board of Assessors gave the recommendation of a 50% tax shift, only due to the fact that since the residential class is growing significantly more than the other three classes, it would definitely shift the burden of taxation onto the commercial, industrial, personal property classes, and their rationale was definitely that in a commercial or industrial setting, they can definitely recoup profit or monies more so than the general public residential taxpayer. If you look at those numbers in comparison, you're looking at, if the 50% tax shift was chosen by the Board of Selectmen this evening, you're looking at about a difference of an increase of $117.04 for an average single-family tax bill. Now, let's look at commercial. Commercial with the same shift. 25% tax shift between fiscals 2022 and 23, the average commercial value being $390,200, and the average commercial tax bill for fiscal 22 was $6,703.64. With the same shift this year, the tax rate would decrease, obviously, from $1,718 to $1,594, so that would actually be a net savings for the CIP class of $110.86. Now looking at it with the recommendation of the Board of Assessors, again breaking down the information with the same values, the commercial real value of $390,200, so last year's commercial average tax bill being $6,703.64. If the selectmen choose to opt for the 50% tax shift, you're looking at an increase or a difference, I have a typo in difference, error of $1,204.39. That is a substantial increase in commercial, industrial, personal property taxes for that class, but again, it is not growing at such a rapid rate as the residential classes. And that is it. Circling back to your question, Kevin, in regards to what's driving growth, since that was of importance to you. Basically, the drawing factors are, we had 28 new residential dwellings in fiscal 23, 32 new residential house lots, 2 commercial garages, 1 is on Peckham Road for the utility companies. We have 2 complete and operational solar arrays now on 88 Wing Lane with 3.49 megawatt capacity. We also have the expansion of 87 Wing Lane with an additional 0.7 megawatts. The utility accounts, which are the 3 accounts that we have in town, which are Hopkinton, LNG, and Eversource. They use a blended way in which to get their assessment, and that net value of growth was $10,030,000. In prior years, it used to be a net book value, now it's an actual inventory value. It's inventory and the net book, and it's kind of blended together to come up with a rate. And that has worked for the past 2 fiscal years. And that's about it. Those are the drawing factors for that $491,000 that you're seeing of potential new growth.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I don't know how you feel, but I can say this. I feel like every year we do this hearing and have this, since I've been on the board, going way back and then back on, I feel like I've always had a disagreement with the Board of Assessors, but I gotta say, in this time.
I'll give you my opinion on it,
support.
and the reason we came up with it.
Yeah.
I believe the 150 or the 50% increase would be a short-term thing. I wouldn't want to stay there. The issue is, as I think everybody in the room knows, values for housing have skyrocketed. Businesses have not. So their values are roughly the same, and a $500,000 house is worth $650 this year. So, you know, if we don't do something to temporarily adjust, the homeowners are gonna get whacked really hard. The Board of Assessors very reluctantly, you know, wanna add that 50% to the businesses, but we do think it's necessary to keep a balance. And then, as I believe we'll be in a recession, and the values will drop down, and you can, you know, take the shift away or lessen it back to the 125, or, you know, something in the following years. That's where we're at.
That's essentially what I was gonna say, is that recognizing sort of the collision course that we're on right now with house values, to take this action. Me personally, I think it's the right thing to do, and I want to commend the Board of Assessors for doing that. I'm one man, one vote, but I do think it's the right thing to do, and I am supportive of that. Gentlemen?
So it's always a difficult decision when you're raising taxes, no matter what class we're talking about. What scares the hell out of me is going to the max.
Maria. Hello. So Maria, this
Hold on one second, folks.
hang on 1 second. If you want the email that I sent. So they've asked for only 15 minutes on, it looks like, the agenda for a standing meeting that they
Just shut
have.
the-
So they didn't ask us to do the
Nick, can you
presentation.
shut
We
the
actually
volume?
sent them a copy of it, so they, you know, they look at it. They said all the,
Great, thank you.
There goes my 5 minutes of fame.
That's it.
So we're going back to that, 150 is the max. What scares the hell out of me is, I've crunched a whole bunch of numbers based on my own lessons and my own tax bills in previous years. We were doing pretty well at the 125, and I've talked to Ms. Kosker about the difference in values, how the commercial doesn't appreciate, and that's what the tax classification is the split is all about, right? It's because the values don't grow like they do in residential. That's why it was created. I don't know if at this time I'm at 150. I do get it to a degree, looking at what it's gonna happen, but I think that I obviously started off this meeting with some questions with Ms. Koska with some numbers that we're using, and I'm uncomfortable. As much as I broke down a bunch of numbers, I would like some more time to have with Ms. Koska and looking at the actual numbers that we used and figuring this out, so I have a better explanation. And to Mr. Brown's point, I think he said we seen a spike in home prices. What worries me about that is, yes, we've seen a spike in home prices because the Federal Reserve has been reluctant to raise interest rates when they should have been raising interest rates, and they haven't raised interest rates, so they're behind the curve. So now they're jacking interest rates way up when they should have been doing something a lot earlier in the cycle. And what happens if we get a recession and they start lowering interest rates, and you drive that euphoria back into the real estate market, and they start lowering rates and it starts driving values back up, we're stuck at 150 and we have no wiggle room for future. So with that, that's where I look at things, and I do what I do for a living. I get the Federal Reserve and their cockamamie things, and that's what's influenced real estate prices. that and the pandemic, but mostly interest rates, right? Free money was out there. You can borrow money at 2.5%, 3%, and now 30-year mortgage rates are at 7.25%. So, it's stuff that I follow every day, and it's just not right how the federal government is manipulating the mortgage market. So, with that said, don't feel comfortable right now.
I agree with you not feeling comfortable. I'm not comfortable with it either, but that's why you can do it every year. And that's the high values that we have right now don't change. Everything that we do from the assessor's office and this decision you make is a one-year thing. The values, even though they're already starting to come down, real estate value, as you said, interest rates over 7%, the sales are taking longer in the market, we're not selling, they're coming down. But that's not gonna change the value on the bill. The value on the bill is at that high number because that's where it is. Next year, if things come down, they're gonna go buy new comps, new sales, the values are gonna be lower and the rate will be higher, and you can, lower this split rate if you want.
If
But
the
it's-
values come down, Bob.
they're already coming down. They're already coming down.
Temporarily, right? It's a short-term thing. So if the Fed gets scared and chickens out with raising interest rates, right? Because that's what's already happened anyway. They chickened out on raising them 2 years ago, right? 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I said this back in 2016. If the economy was so damn good, why are we still at zero interest rates? Doesn't make any sense. In a real strong economy, you have higher interest rates. And they kept them too damn low. And it's none of our faults that the Federal Reserve and those people making them decisions were behind the curve. What worries me is if we go back into it and we go into that recession that you mentioned and they start lowering interest rates, you can drive that euphoria right back up in the real estate market because everybody thinks they have gold bars in their cellar and the house is worth $1 million when it's really worth $250. So houses in my neighborhood, they're not worth 400 grand, okay? But they're selling for 400 grand.
Everything you do today, though, has nothing to do with projected markets or future
Of course it
markets.
does.
No, it doesn't. It's, your numbers are all set right now. You know where they're at. If you want to keep everybody's bill more or less the same, you have to adjust your rate to do it. Because right now, this year, the housing values are high and the business didn't. If you go to 140%, which is a little lower than what we did, there is actually almost no raise in the commercial. It just doesn't put so much pressure on the housing. But if you go up a little bit on, the 150, everybody's gonna pay a little more and it's more balanced. Next year, if the businesses are worth less and houses are worth less or vice versa, you make that change. But we have all the numbers this year. So the only way to balance it is, at the 150.
So
The only way you can stop the residential taxes, the tax dollar, not the rate, not to this, not to that, not the percentage. The only way you can stop their bill from going up $500 on every, $200,000 home is by shifting the rate, shifting the value.
So I've done the calculations on my future tax bill as well, based on the past ones that I've done, and it will go up. So when I did mine, I projected at that 17% increase that she had put on our sample sheet, but now that's changed to 13% there. But she gave us an exercise over here with 17%. My last value.
That was one home. That was
one example, Kevin, and I.
every home's gonna be a little different.
I understand, and I'm only giving you one example, which is my example, right, of my own actuality. So 2019, 225, 2020, 239, 2021, 245, 2022, 265, and my value would go up to 310 based on that 17%. So it's a huge jump. The tax bill's gone up $330 in 4 years, and I understand that my tax bill would now jump $272 year over year. So basically 4 years of the past is gonna be done in 1 year. So I understand what the residential taxpayers are gonna get zonked with. I totally get that. But my problem is right now we're making assumptions that values will go down in a year from now.
We're not.
We're not making assumptions.
I'm not assuming anything. I'm
So
only taking care of this year.
let's go back to next year. What happens if values stay the same or they go up 5%? You have no room to do anything.
Then you can select whatever shift you like. It's
You can-
annual.
You can still go
It's
to a
an annual
125
shift.
split.
No,
and have it go-
I can't go higher though. I got no more buffer to go up. if things get bad with values, is all I'm saying. And we're all sitting here making assumptions that values will drop just because interest rates spiked in the near term. That's all I'm trying to say. And I don't know if that's the best assumption to be taken right now based on the craziness that's happened in the last few years with the housing market, Bob. That's all I'm trying to say, is if values don't go down and they go up again, okay? You have no room to go any further because we're maxed out at 150. That's the only argument I'm making.
You already did as much as you could, so where's the loss?
Right. Mr. Gasper, I appreciate your concerns. Mr. Hinckley?
I also have some questions, but it's more along the lines of, I'd like to sit down with Ms. Koska and go over some numbers and really dive into this a little bit more. I think getting this information a few days ago, I read into it, and I'm learning a lot about it, but there's still some questions I have on how to translate some of these. And I'm not saying put this off for months and months.
Yeah.
But
May I make a recommendation, and I hope you
But I just want to, I was going to ask you, what's our timeline here? Right?
Our timeline is, if we have to have a certified tax rate by the end of November, we do have a buffer of at least 5 weeks right now.
could you live with 1 week?
What's that?
Could you live with 1 week
Oh,
to dig in a little bit more?
it doesn't pertain to me,
Yeah.
Mr. Hinckley.
Well, I don't want
It
to
has
make
to
your
do
job harder
with what
either.
the selectmen choose and what figures they're comfortable on voting upon. I just like to make a suggestion for future years. I don't know if this board will be the standing board for next year, but I find that when classification comes, and I know I provide the information from the assessor's office about a week before, there are a lot of questions. I think it would be, to be proactive, I wouldn't mind meeting with the selectmen, even informally or individually, to discuss what I'm looking at presenting. I think that would definitely, we're putting the cart in front of the proverbial horse right now. And with that being said, this has happened, and I've been put in this situation, and it's a bit compromising because it is being televised. And it puts me in a compromising situation where the information that I am presenting is not necessarily being challenged, but being questioned. And I totally get that, because this is not an easy computation, and we're trying to make the best decision for the town. And that is your mission statement as the board. I also, as an employee of the town, want to present the best information. So I would like that to be considered for future fiscal years. Before classification occurs, maybe I could informally, or whomever wants to informally meet with me, and I can show you where these numbers are being derived from.
Well, thank you. So, my colleagues have some questions. Sounds like they want to put it off, but again, I want to reiterate to Mr. Brown and the Board of Assessments on behalf of myself. Again, I can't speak for my colleagues. I think what you're doing is the right thing right now. We don't have crystal balls. We don't know what the future's going to look like. You can only deal with what's in front of us now.
We know what we have in numbers today.
Right. We've got
They're not gonna
what's
change.
the number? Like 98% of our tax levy, is
88%. But if
is
we,
residential, right? So
Right.
the greater the shift, what you're presenting is a better deal for the residents at this juncture. Next year may be a different story. We may have to go back
It's
down.
not a terrible deal for the businesses. It does increase.
I agree.
But, still not as much as it does
Right.
across the other board,
I mean,
because it's a smaller
what
group.
what I'm hoping for is for our businesses, we get our act together with appropriate zoning and infrastructure improvements to make it more business friendly.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think we've got to be residential friendly, and what the assessors are putting forward, I think, does that. But we'll determine. We'll see
Again,
where this
not
goes.
one of the three assessors were happy about saying we want to go to 150 split rate. All of us are, businessmen as
Yeah.
well, and we understand, not only do we conduct business here in town, but, in the city where the tax shift is actually 200%.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think they caps 175, so, but it's double our tax rate, right, as far as the dollar value goes. I get it, and Kelly, listen, I never questioned the integrity of your work. I want everybody at home to understand
appreciate
that.
that.
You are an outstanding individual. I do back check a lot of numbers with DLS, just to make sure that we're doing everything right to protect the town and the taxpayers, as you do. And then I go back and I do all the back check, fact check, and everything else that I do. I get all my math right here in front of me, my scribble and everything else. I put a lot of work into what I do for the taxpayers of Acushnet. I just have a couple of questions that need to be answered. I think I asked a little bit of it before. I'm a little confused on that number, so I'd like to sit down with you and digest that. I think we can meet next week. We could do it during the day. You're here all day. You know, back in the earlier days, Bob, just so you know, you weren't part of the Board of Assessors. Mr. Dakin and I raised from 115 to 120 then the following year after that, we went to 125. And every year thereafter, the Board of Assessors wanted to go the other way. And now here we are, okay? Saying, oh, we want to go from 125 to 150. And I get it, you're an extremely intelligent man.
I've been in your seat saying I don't want to split tax rate at all. I hear you.
So I get what you're saying, I truly do. I get what Ms. Koska's saying, I truly do. And if I come back in a week, whatever, when we come back and continue this public hearing, we come back, if I'm at 150, I'm at 150. But I'm gonna feel good about what I'm doing at 150, and not say, I wish I would've went with 140. So that's all I'm trying to say, is because theoretically, I gotta start next to 140, just so you know.
There you go.
Just to give myself some wiggle room and the board some wiggle room, because, you know, I deal with this kind of crap all the time.
I would like 140 as well.
So that's, all I'm saying is, I'm just trying to put it all together. It's very difficult when we don't control interest rates and we don't control values, right? It's whatever anybody wants to pay out in the open market versus what somebody's sale price is. I get it. I'm not saying everybody that's buying homes today is very rational and just bidding things up. You know the game, you're in home construction, so you know how it goes better than most people do, Bob. And I have a lot of admiration for your experience in the field, as well as I do for Ms. Koska. So it's got nothing to do with that. It's just, I just need a little bit better number crunching with Kelly. She's very good sitting down with me all the time and crunching numbers and explaining numbers to me. I just want to make sure we got what we need, and then we can move forward.
All right.
So,
Okay. We'll take no action tonight.
and if this is a public hearing, do we have to
You
continue
have
to a
to
date certain and a time
continue
certain?
date and
It's meeting on
time.
the 7th, so hopefully we can get this resolved by then. Meeting on November 7th.
You want to keep
At
that far?
a time.
It
Do
could be,
we have to
that's
come,
fine.
do we have to do this sooner? I mean,
No, we do not. We normally, historically, the town of Acushnet sets its tax rate usually by mid-November.
Okay,
So
so
we're a little
November
bit ahead
7th.
of schedule right now. But again, realize that on the situation of internally, we have an interim treasurer collector. That's a key component to getting those tax bills out. So that's why we want to be, lean more on getting it done sooner rather than later.
well, if you guys want
But
to.
the 7th's okay with you, Ms. Koska?
I don't make the decisions, but
You
that's
have,
fine by me.
I value your opinion too, so.
That's fine by me.
you have Mondays off, don't you?
Yeah, I can't do next Monday though.
Right, well,
We can do Friday. You want to try to do Friday? I mean, I don't know. Today's what, Tuesday?
I don't have time this week.
Okay,
I got
so-
too
so
many-
November
So we're looking
7th
at
it is.
Tuesday the 7th.
Yeah.
That's fine by me.
November
That's the
7th.
day before the voting.
4:10. Monday, November 7th at 4:10.
And I think that'll give me plenty of time to get every question I have. And I commend you guys for doing an excellent job and putting everything together. I just don't feel right making a vote tonight without having all my questions answered personally.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Just
Thank you,
let me
Kelly.
know, just call me at the office. I'm around. I'm leaving early this Friday, but I'll be around all week.
Thank you,
Thank
Bob.
you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Very good. All right, next item on the agenda, we're running behind, is with the DEP regarding Title V nitrogen. That'll come up on that screen, correct?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Hello? Yep.
Great, how are you? Welcome to the Acushnet Board of Selectmen. My name is David Woner, I'm the chair this year. To my right is Mr. Kevin Gasper. To my left is Mr. Robert Hinckley. As we mentioned earlier, you sent us a wealth of information, a huge slide deck. I would ask that you kind of give us the executive summary, and if possible, and maybe if you want to introduce yourself and the panel,
Sure.
who you're with,
Okay.
and then
Thank you.
take it from there.
Good afternoon, I'm Gerard Martin, I'm the Deputy Regional Director for the Bureau of Water Resources at DEP's Lakeville office. And sticking with our office, we also have Jeff Gould. Jeff?
Good evening, with the wastewater program in Lakeville.
Great.
And Dave Burns.
I'm Dave Burns, Lifties Coordinator and Municipal Facilities in the Lakeville office.
And we have a couple of folks from the Boston office, Mary Beth Chubb.
Hi everyone, Mary Beth Chubb. I'm with the wastewater section chief out of the Boston office with Title V and groundwater discharges.
And Maria Pinot.
Good afternoon, Maria Pinot. I'm the Director of the Division of Municipal Services, and I oversee the State Revolving Fund Program out of the Boston office of Mass DEP. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, we had heard that we don't have a lot of time, so you asked not to give us the presentation, which is why we sent you the slides, so you could at least look through them at your leisure. The slides pretty much mimic the information that we sent out the 1st of June. We sent out this information to all the towns that are potentially impacted by the new nitrogen-sensitive area regulations that should be coming out this fall. So because these regs are a little involved, we're doing it a little bit differently, where we are reaching out to the towns to kind of go over what the regulations include.
Have these been adopted, or are these draft regulations?
No, I'm getting to that. So we're still going through the formal process. We're planning on putting them out, draft regulations out for comment. Mary Beth could probably tell us a little bit more what that time frame looks like right now.
So they should be going out to comment early November.
Okay. And how long is that comment period?
The comment period is 30 days.
30 days.
So it would run from November till mid-December,
Okay.
because we afford a little extra time for mail and catching up. And the promulgation date is early 2023, January, February 2023.
Okay. I don't want to be, so if there's a 30-day comment period, and then you're looking to adopt them in January, is that right?
Yes.
So that seems to be an aggressive time frame if you're soliciting comments and then looking to adopt like 30 days later after the holiday season. Is that truly a comment period? Or I guess if you get a slew of comments that are not in alignment with the regulations and what have you, how do you course correct if you're already looking to, it seems like a pretty aggressive adoption timeframe.
It is.
Okay.
It is, and
So is
then, yes.
the comment period real, or is it just like window dressing? I don't want to be rude, I just want to make sure we know what we're dealing with.
No, it's not window dressing at all. It's a valid comment period, and we will be taking the comments in from start to finish of the comment period, which can be extended,
Okay.
should the need be determined to be extended. And should, comments be received that are completely contrary to the draft, then yes,
Okay.
that would warrant not promulgating the regulations, immediately following
Okay.
on the schedule that we've put forth. So it is adaptable.
All right,
Yes.
good, thank you.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman, so you said 30-day comment period, but I got inside your slideshow here, it's for natural resource areas, NSAs. It says you have a 60-day public comment period. So is there two different comment periods that we're discussing here?
Yeah. So what you're looking at in the slideshow is what's in the regulations.
Okay.
So that 60-day comment period is referring to the designation of natural resource area NSA in the second category, which Acushnet would be part of, if I'm correct in that, Gerard.
Yes,
There would be the second category of a natural resource area NSA. That meaning that you would not be automatically designated when these regs go into effect. It would be at a later time.
Right. So I apologize for going off track. If you want to just maybe describe the draft regs, and then we can get into process afterwards. I apologize.
That's okay. Do you want me, I mean, I can very quickly just gloss through some
Yeah,
slides.
I think that would be great. Thank you.
Covering the content and just
Yeah.
quickly go through it?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Do I have the ability to share? I do. Thank you.
Okay, and you have them open?
I do.
Okay.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to get it into the slideshow. Okay. So. All right. So very briefly, currently Title V has nitrogen sensitive areas for drinking water protection purposes, and we're not changing those at all. What we're proposing is establishing a new nitrogen sensitive area that we're calling a natural resource area NSA. So the first group, and I'm not going to read the slide, is the Cape Cod communities. They are under the Cape Cod 208 plan, and 30 watersheds on Cape Cod have nitrogen total maximum daily loads already established. And so for those areas, their designation is automatic when these regs are promulgated. The second group are embayments or sub-embayments that they may have a TMDL already. They may have an MEP report leading to the development of TMDL, but it hasn't been done yet. They may not even have a scientific evaluation even started. And for those, it's not an automatic designation. It would happen at a later time based on that scientific evaluation or that TMDL when DEP designates them. And that's where the 60-day public comment period comes in. When DEP designates it as a natural resource area, there's a 60-day public comment period afforded for that designation. When an area is designated under Title V, that starts a 5-year time clock for the individual system owner to upgrade their septic system and install best available nitrogen reducing technology. The other option is the community can apply for and operate under a watershed permit. The definition for best available nitrogen reducing technology is lowest effluent total nitrogen performance value with certification of general use from DEP. You could also use piloting or provisional systems as long as they had equal or better total nitrogen performance. So again, the timing for this implementation of designation for the Cape Cod communities, those 30 watersheds under the Cape Cod 208 and TMDL, is automatic when the regs are promulgated. For other communities that may have a nitrogen TMDL or the MEP report, they're going to go through a designation process by DEP, and that's going to happen at a later time. The exemption from the requirement on the individual system owner to install best available nitrogen technology is for the community to obtain a watershed permit. So in addition to these revisions to Title V, we're also establishing regulations for a watershed permit. And the watershed permit is a 20-year voluntary permit instead of a traditional 5-year permit. It's issued to the local government unit, could be a combination of local government units. It allows communities the ability to utilize a greater range of technologies, both alternative and conventional. It's based on a comprehensive watershed management plan. It's town approved, and it uses adaptive management, which means you can utilize the technology, evaluate its effectiveness, and then adjust and adapt pending the results of that technology. So the watershed management plan, comprehensive or targeted, the long-term plan for the community as a whole to address water quality impairments. And for those watersheds with the TMDL, the plan has to be designed to achieve at least 75% pollutant reduction within that 20-year timeframe of the permit. And there is a caveat in the draft regs that Mass DEP could determine an alternative schedule as appropriate based on watershed-specific issues. And then you can read what the application will need to include, and standard provisions. There'll be annual report submittal, 5-year evaluations, permits that are issued by DEP, for example, for a wastewater treatment facility that had a groundwater discharge permit. That groundwater discharge permit is maintained, but it is incorporated as part of the watershed permit by reference. And there are the public notice requirements for issuance, modification, revocation, and termination of the watershed permit. And that kind of follows a standard public notice process. It would be issued in the Monitor, a newspaper circulated in the area of the watershed, on DEP's webpage. It's a comment period of at least 60 days, and a hearing can be provided if requested by the permittee or deemed necessary by DEP. And then there's also public notice process for some instances of modifying the permit, and also if DEP were to revoke it or the permittee were to terminate their permit coverage, that would go through a public notice process. And that's because for each of those actions, upon revocation or termination, the requirement to install that best available nitrogen reducing technology again falls to the individual under Title V. So this is just, these are the areas that are going to be impacted. Don't squint trying to read the tiny print there. It's just to show this is the areas of impact. And then I'll ask Gerard to run through these because these are the slides that are specific to Acushnet.
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth. And actually, Mary Beth, I don't know if you want to speak to the website that we're putting together and some of the information we have there, or do we do that at the end? We can do that.
We do it at the end, but we can, yeah, we are populating a website and continually making updates to it. And that is in, the website address is in that PowerPoint presentation that you have. It's one of the final slides.
And then one of the things that we have on the website is 4 Lower Cape towns have been working on a watershed permit now for almost 5 years. They're actually starting to do their 5-year review. It's the Pleasant Betty Group. And so that information is up there to kind of show you what, it's almost like a pilot watershed permit to kind of show you what we're expecting from the permit when Acushnet gets around to working on theirs, if that's the way they choose to go. So early on, Mary Beth mentioned the timing of when the new regulations will kick in for different towns. So all the Cape towns, because they have that 208 designation, it's as soon as the regulations kick in, then they have to start working on them. The other towns, including Acushnet, that are part of the 208, we look to see if they have an approved TMDL, and the 3 estuaries that Acushnet watersheds may be impacting, none of those 3 estuaries do. Acushnet obviously is, watersheds are impacting Fairhaven, New Bedford, Inner Harbor, Nescatucket Bay, and may be impacting Mattapoisett Harbor. Some of the watersheds from Mattapoisett Harbor, I think, extend up into Acushnet. None of these have a TMDL. 2 of them have a MEP report that indicates there is some nitrogen issues and are in the TMDL process, but it's not completed. We could use that information to designate it as a nitrogen sensitive area, NRD area, or we could also wait till the TMDL is complete and approved. And then Mattapoisett Harbor is even further down because they haven't even, those studies have even been started to evaluate Mattapoisett Harbor. So basically, for Acushnet, the NSA designations are down the road. So it's not something that's going to kick in right away. We have to, finish looking at the data, determine if there is a nitrogen impairment, and then go through the public process to designate them as an NSA. Next slide, please. So we have a couple of what we've been calling bubble slides that kind of walk you through the process. Basically, they go over in a little more detail what I just said. So because would Acushnet have the automatic natural resource area NSA designation? Again, because they're not subject to a 208, they would not. So we jump over to the second green box. Do they have any watersheds with PMDLs? Again, no, but as I mentioned, there is some work that's been done that indicates there's nitrogen issues. And then it talks about how we go through the public process with that 60-day comment period on the NSA designation. And then once that is all said and done, then Acushnet would have a choice to either have the residents upgrade their systems to IA systems, or doing that watershed permit. And the next slide is very similar, except it just talks about Mattapoisett Harbor, because the difference is that they don't even have a MEP report yet. So they're a little further behind than the others. So when it comes to when Acushnet would have to deal with these new regulations, it's down the road. And then we do have part of the presentation is about state revolving fund, and that's why Maria explains.
Do you want me to go over quickly?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the State Revolving Fund program has been financing the upgrade or replacement of failed septic systems for a number of years now, and it has been quite successful in meeting the demands of the communities. I know that Acushnet does have a program, and so you're familiar with it, so I'll very quickly just go over some of the highlights. Over the past 5 years, we have financed 29 loans at over $14 million, and the average loan amount for the community septic management program is $450,000. This is how the Barnstable County operates, and they finance the loans for the Cape Cod community. Next slide, please. So how the program works, and the reason that we believe that this is relevant at this time is because this is probably one of the options that communities have to finance the upgrade to their septic systems should the regulations go into effect. And Mass DEP accepts applications from communities on a rolling basis, depending on the demand from homeowners. Homeowners then apply to the town for financing, and the funds are drawn from the Clean Water Trust, who oversees these loans. The loan to the community is secured with a general obligation pledge and receives the traditional debt authorization at the community level. The loan to the homeowner, in turn, is secured with a betterment agreement between the community and the homeowner, and the Clean Water Trust or Mass DEP are not a party to this agreement. So these are just between the community and the homeowner. Next slide, please. Since the loan to the homeowner is secured with a betterment agreement, Massachusetts general laws do regulate these agreements, and they establish the interest rate that can be charged, and also the terms of the agreement. The interest rate charged by the community to the homeowner can be used to cover the administrative costs associated with running this program. And the draws made against the loan by the community operate under the Trust Interim Loan Program and accrue no interest and no fees until they go into permanent financing. In most cases, the loan is put into repayment mode or permanent financing within 2 years or sooner if all the funds have been spent or if the community decides that they are finished with the program. So as I said before, this could be an option for this new program if the regulations move forward. Next slide, please. This picture depicts the state revolving fund loan application process, and is intended to provide an idea of what the steps are in order to participate in the program. The program offers low interest rates loans to communities to comply with the Clean Water and the Drinking Water Acts, and to participate in the program, the communities need to submit a project proposal during the SRF project solicitation period that opens in July of each year. And then MassDEP evaluates all the proposals, and we use a pre-established ranking system to evaluate the projects and ranking by priority. And because funding is always an issue, even though we have received additional funding through the bipartisan infrastructure law that went into effect last year, which provides additional funding for the state revolving funds. Massachusetts expects to receive over $1.1 billion of this funding over a 5-year period through 2026. And this funding is critical for communities because in addition to providing additional capacity for loans, it also provides additional funds for pre-loan forgiveness to communities that are classified as disadvantaged communities due to their affordability to implement these programs. And Acushnet could benefit from this funding because it's listed as a tier 2 community, disadvantaged community. So I would urge you to take a look at the program and what subsidies are offered. And the intended use plan then is critical because it lists the projects that are going to be offered financing, and only those priority projects are then allowed to submit a loan application, and the deadline for that application is usually mid-October of the financing year. And once applications are received, then MassDEP process those applications and certifies the project, and at that time, loan agreements are drawn out between the community and the Clean Water Trust, and at that time, the project may begin construction and the funds can be dispersed. This entire process takes between 18 months to 2 years, and once the project is listed in the IUP, this really happens. Then the project is expected to initiate construction. So readiness to proceed in SRF is critical because the deadlines cannot really be extended, beyond what has been established due to grant commitments that are established by EPA. So one deadline that I would like to highlight is the June 30th deadline for appropriation of the project. That is necessary in order to obtain an SRF loan. So planning at the community level is really critical in SRF participation.
Thank you.
I'm available anytime if you would like to contact me and discuss your projects. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them at this time.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for doing this. You guys are outstanding public servants. It's a critical mission and a service that you provide. It's an important agency within state government. That said, I am concerned about, this becoming a solution in search of a problem, especially as it pertains to the town of Acushnet. I'm hoping that there's a high burden of proof to determine whether or not we are contributors to some of the issues. And then ultimately, I think we're all vanguards of the taxpayer and our residents, and I just hope this doesn't become an unfunded mandate for them. And so, we want to work with you and make sure that our taxpayers and residents, aren't forced to take on additional costs that they can ill afford, especially now. We just had a long discussion about our tax rate and, doing what we can to protect them, because they're under the gun right now. And so just ask that, we take that into consideration as we go through this process. Gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, not sure who can answer this, or if you can. What's the average price, let's say, for a 2-bedroom, best available nitrogen reducing technology system? In other words, whether they get a loan or not, what are our residents gonna have to pay, average, to have a system installed to mitigate this issue, or possible issue? And what's the longevity of this system in their yards?
Roger, I mean,
Yep, I was just gonna say Mary Beth has been pulling this information together, so I was just gonna hand it off.
so for the technologies, for best available, there's 2 different technologies that are currently going through provisional, which is the performance evaluation level, that are demonstrating 10 or less for nitrogen, which is really kind of the levels that are going to be needed for water quality issues for embayments. And their range of prices, depending on site and conditions of system, are $20,000 to $35,000. Because there could be, the high end being you need an upgrade to your general system in addition to the additional unit of denitrification.
So if
Can't
you-
speak
if
to
you-
longevity yet because they're in provisional use. But we do have, the denitrification systems that have general use that came in for the purposes of drinking water protection. NSAs have been, being utilized since they received their certification, and this started with the 1995 code. So there is longevity in, but I can't speak to the ones that are currently going through provisional because they haven't been thoroughly tested or been out there for a length of time.
So would DEP, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Would DEP be segregating a town like ours because we are partially sewered in the south side of town, but the north side of town is all septic systems with well water on the north side? So would DEP be looking at that saying this is the specific system you would need if you have well water and a septic system, and where you're more in the center of town, even if you have a septic system, but you're tied to municipal water and there's no wells around for drinking water, would that require a different system, or is it, one fits all, one shoe size fits all for everybody across the town? In municipalities where you're segregated and split in 2 different kinds of, areas of drinking water for people that have septic systems and wells, and then you have a section of town that's either sewered and all intermunicipal water. And then there's some of us that have intermunicipal water, or municipal water and septic tanks. So how would that be classified? Would we just be all bundled in the same basket and say this is one size fits all, you're all dealing with the same system, or would there be 2 different kinds of systems that would be needed? One, because somebody's actually drinking water in a remote location of where your septic system would be. Obviously, you don't want to be drinking nitrogen all day. And then others would have municipal water with a septic system or sewer. So how would DEP look at that?
So,
Well,
go ahead, Gerard.
Well, first of all, it's not necessarily town-wide, it's basin-wide. We're looking at the basins, and it's kind of early for Acushnet because we don't have the TMDLs, and even Mattapoisett Harbor, they don't even really have a study yet. So if it turns out that, only one of the estuaries has is designated as a nitrogen-sensitive area NRD, then it's just the basin that contributes to that estuary. So it's not necessarily a town-wide thing. And then where the town is also partially sewing, you'll probably be looking at leaning more towards the watershed permit, because the sewering is taking care of a lot of the issue. And then you'd look at the outskirts in that basin to see if additional stuff needed to be done.
So you talk
One of
about,
those-
you're talking about a basin, so I'm assuming you're talking about a stormwater basin?
No, it's a basin, so it's a hydrogeologic designation area that the groundwater and surface water in a certain area feeds an estuary.
Okay,
So if you look at the map that I put up, and you don't have to look at it now, you'll see these little purple lines, and those are sub-basin lines outlining where the water that ultimately ends up in Upper New Bedford Harbor comes from. So you would look at the basin that's feeding that estuary.
okay.
And then, Mary Beth, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just to your question on the technology. So as Gerard said, you would have an area that was determined to be that natural resource area NSA. And that would be based on an evaluation of what the load is that's coming in, say from that neighborhood of septic systems, or what the situation is. When you have that, then a determination is made of what is the removal that needs to happen. So when you're looking at that situation, you want the best performance value technologies. You need to have something lower than the drinking water standard ones that are out there. So any system that is going to be, lower than that or meet the need for the town to remove that nitrogen load is the technology that you're going to be looking to use. What those are going to be, currently, as I said, there's 2 under evaluation and 1 starting evaluation. And then if it's just drinking water purposes, there's numerous systems out there to choose from for that purpose.
Okay. Great, but as you mentioned a number of times, from a Acushnet standpoint, this is still a ways away, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, gentlemen, if there are no other questions, thank you very much. I think this is going to be the first of a number of conversations. We look forward to commenting, providing comment during that comment period, and working with you as a partner. Got a few other issues that might require DEP's examination in town, and we may have to call you to deal with that sometime soon. So thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome, and I just want to say that we need to work with the towns to make this all work. So we do take the comments very seriously. We're taking comments since June in meetings like this.
Got it.
And drafting the regulations at the same time, and actually making changes to the draft regulations based on comments that we were receiving. So it really isn't window dressing. We need to work together to make this work and make the environment a better place. And we do really look forward to your comments. If we get a deluge of comments, then we may have to, look at our schedule and figure out what to do with that.
Outstanding, thank you.
You will contact the towns as you come in and do your measurements, I guess, of the TMDLs, to whether or not we're going to be designated as an area of concern? Like, when do we know, you're saying about a comment period, but when will we know, the town of Acushnet, know whether or not we're even being impacted by this?
Oh, okay. Mary Beth, you?
So the evaluation, if it hasn't happened yet, heavily involves the town in that. It would be the town's responsibility of, looking, if you're gonna go with the watershed management plan, hiring an engineer, consulting firm, doing the evaluations, getting that information that's needed in order to determine the loadings that you have to remove and deal with.
Oh, I thought you did that. I thought Mass
We do
DEP
not,
comes down
yeah.
and does testing in our watershed area, so we're gonna be responsible to have to do that? Is that part of
Yeah.
our MS4 permitting stuff?
No, but
No?
but they could be, so the MS4, the stormwater stuff, the stormwater may be a contributor, so what you're doing on that end will be, part of that evaluation, in terms of, how you're managing stormwater and keeping the nitrogen that's in the stormwater out
Right.
of the embayment, so that goes into it. But, you're not gonna be left on your own. We will be in contact. It's not gonna be a surprise that you're designated. as a natural resource area NSA. It's not an overnight thing, and you guys won't be automatically designated at the outset. So there's time to meet with DEP and, you know, figure out how best you need to proceed, how you want to proceed to do those evaluations.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
Thank-
Take care, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is,
Mr. Chairman, I have to leave in 20 minutes at 5:30, sir.
okay?
Just,
Mr. Chairman,
We'll do the best we can.
is this off yet?
All right,
I contacted the MMA legislative director, asked for assistance for the town in dealing with this, and they are going to get back to us. They are looking into it, and they are looking into making comments on these draft regulations.
Okay. All right, seeing that Mr. Gasper's on a little bit of a time crunch, Heather, I don't want to, I'd like to get into let's move to the finance issues on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The ARPA vote has to be done.
Okay, then
Today.
that's fine. All right, we'll take that up. Regarding ARPA, in conversations with the town ARPA consultant Jennifer Thompson of Capital Strategic Solutions about paying the signing bonuses out of ARPA funds, she advised that the town pay the bonuses out of the Commonwealth ARPA funds rather than the Bristol County ARPA funds. There's a simple vote and a motion, which would be I move to expend American Rescue Plan Act funds in the amount of $18,250 to fund stipends to AFSCME employees in the amount of $1,800 to fund stipends to DPW employees.
18,000.
18,000, sorry, to DPW employees for a total expenditure of $36,250. Is there a motion to that effect?
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries.
Mr. Kelly, I just had one question on one employee, but we can discuss that later. So if the number's revised down, does it matter?
No,
Okay,
this just is an authorization.
Okay.
I think
that's fine, thank you.
All right. At our last meeting, we did a pre-read of a audit proposal by Robert Brown, second CPA. Gentlemen, I think there were some questions, but we did not vote on it. Is there a recommendation by the board? Are we good with this?
I think the only question that I had is hold on, I think I have my own one. It just said if the town is required to obtain a federal grant audit, which we know we're doing with ARPA, a fee adjustment would be necessary. So what I asked, what would that fee adjustment be? Because it can't just be a blank check.
Mr. Chairman, ARPA is exempt from the single audit. So right now, the only single audit that could be done would be on school funds, and they would pay for it.
Motion to approve Robert Brown
Okay.
Second.
as the auditor.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries. All right, next item is interim treasurer collector. As you know, we are currently blessed to have an interim treasurer collector now. We'll be moving on, and Mr. Kelly has scouted out and interviewed Miss Angela Chandler. Mr. Kelly, would you like to speak to that?
She comes highly recommended. She has had a large city experience as well as town experience. Our interim town accountant is worked with her and highly recommends her. And we have to have someone in place when the contract expires. With the present interim, she will stay on in a transition period between the two. Ms. Chandler has waited for us. She has 2 other communities looking to engage her. I would think that this would be a very good solution in the temporary to keep everything running.
Okay. Gentlemen, any thoughts?
What choice do we have really, right? I mean, we need a treasurer collector. So I know the hourly rate's above what we're currently paying, but
for an interim right now until we get to budget seasons and have that discussion on what we're doing. Make a motion to approve.
I'll
To
second.
appoint.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to appoint Miss Angela Chandler, and there's a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. All right. So we've got a resignation in the treasurer collectors. Miss Ashley Haslam has submitted her resignation to the position of treasurer clerk within the town of Acushnet. Her last day is October 31st. Is there a motion to accept with regret?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Gentlemen, we do have on the agenda, I think,
Chiefs up there.
yeah, we do have on the agenda the position of the assistant town accountant and as well as assistant treasurer collector as it pertains to salaries. On the agenda, we could go into a brief executive session to discuss that, if that's the will of the board. If not, we'll have to.
I don't think that conversation's gonna be 15 minutes, so, Mr. Chairman, so.
Okay.
I'm more than happy with scheduling a meeting anytime during the day, to move forward on that.
We can do that
Take
on
action.
the November 7th meeting.
Can we do it?
Well, I mean, we can do this if you can sneak in a meeting earlier. Having 3 pages of stuff on an agenda, I find that we're pushing stuff through fast, and I'd rather sit down, especially discussing these 2 positions, I'd rather sit down and do that as a separate meeting, or I don't think we should fill up our 7th meeting with more stuff, personally.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
So can we do something during the day, during the week?
Can we do a Friday? It's Friday?
Yep. I can't.
Do we have time to post?
No, I just, I can't do this week. I'm already this week. Next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
I've got a meeting
Thursday, Friday.
Monday, negotiations. You have the same.
Yep. I could do Tuesday morning and then the rest of the week unavailable.
Tuesday's fine,
What times?
anytime.
Bring your schedule down.
Roll the
I'll
dice.
change the schedule on Tuesday.
I'll accommodate the board. I have somewhere to be tonight, so I'll accommodate the board Tuesday
Mr. Gasper
morning.
did let me know that prior to the meeting, so.
So,
I'll say 10 o'clock Tuesday,
what time?
10 o'clock Tuesday morning.
Is that good for
That's-
you, Selectman Warner?
Yeah.
10 o'clock Tuesday morning.
November 1st.
Deal.
I think it's an important conversation, and I want to make
It
sure
is.
we talk about it the right way.
Actually, Tuesday, you're fine.
Okay. All right, so we will put
Lisa,
that
you just
up.
have to post a meeting Tuesday, 10 o'clock. Please and thank you. The executive sessions anyway.
All right, we have our police chief here. I guess talk about overtime.
Good evening, everyone. Real quickly, this is kind of an update based off the conversation we had back in June when we transferred the money in to get us through FY '22. It's pretty much status quo, not much has changed. We took a big hit when we lost 2 to the state police and now 3 on military duty. We started the process of righting the ship in July, where we appointed 2 officers full-time. One, we were lucky enough that had the full-time academy and started relatively quickly. The second one is scheduled to go to the Randolph Academy in December. In September, the board saw fit to allow us to start the process to appoint an additional 3 full-timers. We're going through that process now, that hopefully we'll be bringing them before you in a relatively future meeting to appoint. Those candidates would be going to a February, hopefully get into a February academy down in Plymouth. We hope to have the 2 of the military people back May, June. The 3rd one would be back not until July or August based on what we have so far. Overtime is obviously being spent. We've got to notify, talking with Mr. Hassett in the accounting office, and after the last, not this payroll, but the last payroll, we were a little over halfway through our overtime budget, being like a quarter of the way through the year, which the math doesn't add up as we go through the year. One positive, or a couple of positives, is on the regular salary side, there is, because we don't have people working, there is going to be a savings on that side, which will more than offset, will help to offset I can't give you a number right now. I think it's probably a thing where we'll probably come back to you in January, once we're 6 months through the year, and get a better idea of where we stand. Because with the military deployees, we're only paying them a percentage of the salary for 6 months of the fiscal year. For probably about a third of what they're actually owed, so we're saving that money on the regular salaries each week, and then once January comes, 2 of them, we won't be paying them anymore until they return to work. So there'll be a significant savings there. So there's a couple other options, monies that will be coming in through the year that will help offset that. But I think we'll probably have a better picture in January, once we get, halfway through the year, and obviously, as we go month by month or quarter by quarter, it'll become clear. But it's certainly not as bleak as it could be, but chances are we're gonna need funds come the end of the year, but I can't give you a hard number right now based on where we are. I can assure you that the overtime that's being spent now is not being spent to have 10 people come in on a Saturday and sweep the garage. It's to put the minimum number of officers on the road to answer calls. On the administrative side, we've cut the number of hours available for people to get their gun licenses, much to the public's chagrin, but we have to do what we have to do. I mean, it's a work in progress. An officer that working on accreditation and certification, cutting the hours that he's committed to that because we've had to. And also on the detective side, my 2 detectives are actually regularly working uniform shifts as part of their hours to help bridge the gap. So at this point, there's really not much else, that can be done.
Yeah. Chief, I want to first off commend you and your efforts to manage the overtime as best you can. We were dealt a massive blow when we lost 5 officers pretty much within a 60-day period, I would say, right? Not too many departments can manage through that. I want to thank you for that and your hard work and due diligence that you're doing, shifting people around, and the mechanics of the police department. And I also want to thank every one of our police officers that are currently on duty, managing those shifts and helping you out manage the department to fill those shifts so that we can provide the same public safety that we have. It's not easy for these gentlemen to do their jobs, working the OT that they are. So I just wanted to send out an offer of gratitude to all our police officers that are there doing the job every day and didn't really miss a beat, right? So I know it's tough. We all know. We all knew it was going to come to this. You lose 5 officers out of a small department. It's basically 25% of our workforce. It's crushing. So thank you for everything you're doing to do your best to manage that overtime and shifting, the chess pieces around. But we can only do as much as we can do. So I just wanted to thank you and thank the staff over at Acushnet Police Department, because it's really a tremendous effort on behalf of everyone there. So
Thank you,
including dispatch.
I appreciate those kind words, and I'll be certain to pass them along to the troops.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Chief.
We'll deal with fire another time at the next meeting. Heather's here. Mr. Gasser, you can hang tight for 5 minutes.
You have 2 other things that need votes. I don't. I can wait till the end.
If there's any presentation, well, Mr. Gatt, we have nothing else really that's.
Yeah, the election warrant.
Yeah, but you guys can do that.
All right.
So let Heather do what she needs
No,
to
I
do.
can wait again. It's really, I'm not in a rush.
Yeah, okay. So, the election warrant, we'll go to new business.
Yeah.
It requires us to vote on item number 2. We gotta deal with this every year, every time we have an election. It's submitted to us by the town clerk. Not much that we can do to change it, we just have to adopt it. Is there a motion to approve the election warrant as submitted?
So moved.
Just looking at the dates and times. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And there's a bunch of questions on the ballot, in case everybody's wondering. I'm sure you got your little magazines in. I don't think it had all 4 questions. I think the book that came to my house only had 3 questions, so there is 4 questions, I believe, on the ballot.
So check both sides of your ballot. I don't know what the ballot's set up like, but just in case, you might want to check both sides of the ballot. You can
Right.
contact the town
And we
clerk's
need
office.
to appoint an election worker.
Yes. Next item is to appoint Mr. James Rollins, Army retired. Thank you for your service, Mr. Rollins, to election member, as an election member. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And the next item is just an update on early voting. It starts it started October 22nd, Saturday, 10 a.m., October 24th, Monday, 8. So basically the 24th through the 28th, 8:30. Yeah, there's different times here. Well, can we make sure this is posted on our webpage?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
So early voting is available. Early voting location, Potting Ways Building, 130 Main Street.
Okay.
Election day is November 8th, and that's pretty much it for Mr. Voting.
All right. Mr. Gasper, if you need to go, that's fine.
Okay, cool.
We will, Ms. Sylvia? Heather?
If she's only gonna be 5 minutes, I can hang.
Okay.
And I don't want to, I can,
I can get you out of here in 30.
You can spare 5
yeah,
minutes?
no, I would never do that to you, so,
No, that's fine.
thank you.
You will. So, thank you for having me. So real quick, and I'll touch on what I know was near and dear to Mr. Gasper's heart, our handicap accessible doors. They began the installation today. The hardware for the doors was successfully put in before the rain. We just need the electrician to come in, wire it up. The company doing the doors will come back and program it. So I figure probably by the end of next week, those doors will be installed.
Cool.
That's a good update.
And the floor?
Excellent.
And the floor, Lucas came to look at the floor, so that will follow. Update on our outreach workers. Originally, we had run the ad on Indeed. Mr. Kelly and I invited 4 candidates to interview for the position. 1 declined the interview. Unfortunately, we had 1 person not show up after they had scheduled the interview. And we did interview 2 candidates, but we wanted to cast our net a little bit wider. So we worked with Ms. David from Neighborhood News to rerun the ad. And we'll be interviewing 2 additional candidates on Monday.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Do you want to do veterans benefits?
Yeah, keep going.
You give the benefits for the seniors that we talked about, and I'll jump in.
Okay, so in your packets, there should be kind of a basic list of what we offer for community support services. We do food assistance, food stamps, basically whatever we can do to support our seniors, keep them aging safely at home. We want to keep them in the community. There is one program that's not in our wheelhouse. It's through PACE, but the DPW handles it, and that's the handout that I just gave you. If a family, and it's not just seniors, if a family qualifies for fuel assistance and they become behind in their water bill by 3 months, so they've either gotten a water shut-off notice, they've already been shut off, as long as they have that qualification, that fuel assistance, PACE will help them restore service.
Nice.
But we don't encourage people to do this because you need to be 3 months behind in arrears to even qualify. So we're not suggesting that people do that, but it's nice to know that if that does happen, if that orange tag ends up on your door, there is options. And I just want to commend our water department because if they notice a senior or someone with disabilities getting a water shut-off notice, they give us a heads up 48 hours in advance so that we can kind of look into it before that happens. So I think they need to be commended for that. That they take that initiative on their own.
Yeah, they're great with that stuff,
Yeah,
but
they're
if
very
you could,
fortunate.
if you could just stay in contact with Kathy Silva.
Yep.
And
She
Ann,
was gonna
our
do the
2
same
office,
speaker now,
young
yeah.
ladies in the office, they do a tremendous job there.
They do.
And, you know, you obviously do an awesome job down at Council on Aging. I don't have to say that to anybody, everybody knows it about you, Heather. But just stay in contact because they always have that updated list. So if we see somebody with that trouble,
Yeah.
but they're still coming in and struggling to make that payment, maybe we can do something and have that conversation with them through you, of course.
Right, absolutely. The only reason we don't host this program is because we don't have access to that information, who's in arrears on their water bills. There would be no reason for us to have that information. So that's why they do.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, that was like the quick version of what we do, so we can get him out of here.
All right.
Oh, senior tax work off.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, that's a big one. So I kind of need your support on that. We have 2 people who are onboarded. One is doing their hours at the COA. One, we worked with Mr. Hannon. They're doing their hours in the Conservation Department. Those 2 individuals are also going to help Ms. Labonte on Election Day
Nice.
at the polls.
Okay.
So I just need you to encourage staff to kind of step up in different departments. And I have the people. I have 3 more people we could bring on board, but I don't have necessarily jobs for them to do. So, and I know that there is a concern of, okay, Lisa won, but just kind of encourage everyone if they need some help in their office. It can complement a union position, but we don't want a grievance, so it can't replace a union position.
Sure. Yeah, I think the Board of Selectmen would be a great,
Yeah.
great office.
Whatever we can do, I mean, Lisa,
Filing.
she could use somebody to catch up on minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're way behind on minutes, so I mean, if we, depending on the senior,
Yeah. And we have
you know,
a great
they're
talent pool. We're very
computer
blessed.
literate, Lisa could probably set them up to, you know, give her like a little example, like a little template.
Yeah.
And maybe we could get something going, other things that relieve some of the other duties that she has going on, and she could do the minutes, whatever works best for her.
Even if you can give it to them, they can come to our office, we'll set them up with a computer, kind of, that's an option too.
Mr. Chairman, Heather and Kelly at the assessor's office and DPW are all working together. Beyond what she's mentioned, we're looking at the senior tax exemptions. We've also talked to some of the veterans groups in town so that we get our veterans to apply for their tax exemptions. We're going to be putting this as almost a one-stop shopping where we're going to have events at the COA and invite all those folks who think they could qualify to come.
Great.
Yeah. And
We will not take any votes.
You can do whatever you want to do.
we'll not be offended by. And that's our goal, right? No wrong door. So if a senior or a veteran or someone with disability presents at Kelly's office, she'll say, you know, not our wheelhouse, but you're not in the wrong place, we'll send you to the COA. So it's really just part of that continuity, that team Acushnet, that we try to show everything.
Okay,
And you do.
awesome.
Yes.
We try.
Great work. Thank you very
Positive
much.
influence on our town.
Thank you. So
I
that
very
was
much appreciate
short
it.
and sweet, because I know you've been here a long time. You know, you're always welcome to come to the COA, see what we do. And our
Sure.
job is just keep our seniors home, safe, and in our community.
You know, speaking of that, Heather,
Yes.
if it worked for my colleagues, maybe we could host a selectmen's meeting.
I think it would be
I
great.
think we did that years ago. I remember we did that, I think when I was chairman. Let's do it some afternoon. You can do it during the day and have a selectmen's meeting there and turn it into a little bit of an office hours.
That would be
and,
awesome. You
have
may get
lunch.
recruited for poker or Zumba, but
was just
it's
gonna
not my
say
fault.
Zumba.
I warned you.
Poker, I'll play Zumba.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah,
Those
so-
ladies are movers and shakers.
Let's see if we
we'll
can
probably
figure
try
that
to have
out.
to make it one on a Monday, so it makes it easier for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm negotiable, so.
Okay.
Let's make that happen before the
Okay.
holidays.
We'd love to have you,
Maybe around
absolutely.
the holiday season, we'll do it around there and have a little Christmas party.
Sounds good.
All right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Heather.
Yeah, Veterans Day agenda.
Just to give you kind of a, I mean, Ron had given me, we have the agenda for, you know,
Yep.
the service. Mr. Kelly has asked us to,
We're making sure that the monuments are decorated. We're making sure that the Lucas and Rich are available to do the setup, to do the, make sure the leaves and et cetera are clean from around the monuments. So
Awesome.
I've met with the VFW folks and the American Legion folks and the Veterans Agent, and we are pretty sure that everything will, knock on wood, go off without a hitch.
Great.
Excellent.
Very nice. Thank you for your attention. It's very important that we do this appropriately, so thank you. All right. Let's see. Under old business, we do have the EMA director, but I think we're going to wait for Mr. Gasper. He was assigned to do that. And then building maintenance, as much as I'd love to move forward with that. I know Mr. Gasper had some questions at the last meeting, so let's hold that off until he is here with us. And then I think everything else is town administrator's report, Mr. Kelly.
Just quickly, preliminary estimates for increase of revenue is $800,000. The Budget Busters Bristol County retirement increase came in at $102,308. We are putting together the others so we'll know how bad the picture is for the budget. It's not a big revenue increase, so we're going to have to probably pare some budgets down. As far as administrative issues, the golf committee voted to accept my recommendations as far as their management structure and having a greens committee or a subcommittee meet with me every 2 weeks. And we're putting together a 5-year review. And we're looking at the 5-year because of that will be when the bonds are paid off and we'll know what we're doing with the golf course. Looks like we have another applicant for the building inspector's job. I've got to talk to the board prior to announcing who it would be. I think it's someone who's very respected and has a great deal of experience. Treasurer collector we dealt with. After the election, I'm going to deal with the town clerk. She and I are going to look at the dog licensing software, make sure it is compatible with Invoice Cloud. And
Can I ask you a question? Where are we with Invoice Cloud? When will it be fully implemented?
I'm going to be dealing with Angela on that. She has more experience.
Got it.
The ARPA issues at November 7th, I'm going to need the board to at least declare some of the projects, and so we can go forward with the grant agreement on the county money. Doesn't mean that we have to have all the estimates and paperwork together, we just have to start that grant agreement. And then I've given you the RFPs that I've discussed in legal, and you folks have to get back to me whether that's acceptable to you.
Right, it is what I mean. Let's put that on the agenda for the next meeting, so we can get.
You've got a bunch on for the 7th. You might
do it on the
wanna
1st.
You might want to do that.
Let's do it on the 1st, we're meeting.
For the RFP on the 1st?
Yeah, if we can bang out some of those housekeeping things.
All right.
Because there's not much on the first meeting anyways, it's just those 2 important conversations we have.
Well, I would ask the,
We do the tax thing too while we're out.
yeah, but I would ask that the job descriptions also be on the 1st.
Yeah.
And there is a police grievance. It was on for an executive session, but I would ask that that go on the 1st too.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right. Mr. Hinckley, is there a motion to adjourn?
There's a motion to adjourn.
I am a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.